So out of nowhere, I have no idea why, Fox News, and Laura Ingraham in particular, are going full reefer madness on the issue of weed. I mean, look, we're already past the tipping point. So many states have legalized it. Biden announced, of course, that he's going to give a pardon to all the federal nonviolent weed offenders, and he told the states, hey, governors, you should do this too. Many of the states are doing it. So it's over. It's done. It's going to be descheduled in the near future. That's another thing Biden ordered. And the war's going to be over. You're going to have weed at some point legal in every state in the country, as it should be. Well, Fox News is trying to use this to attack Democrats and attack Joe Biden and attack the pro-weed people. And they just hop right in a time machine and get back to goofy fear-mongering. Let's watch.
The mainstreaming of pot has come at the same time as the drug has increased exponentially in its potency, its THC levels. As one highly cited paper points out, the consumption of marijuana is associated with an increase in violent behavior and a high risk of psychosis for frequent users.
Oh my goodness. Did she just argue, unironically, that weed is making people violent? Is that what she argued? I think that's what she just argued. Now, look, I'm actually no fan of weed. I don't like it. It actually does make me paranoid. It's one of my least favorite drugs. And there are some people who fall in the same category as me that they don't like it. But there's no denying that probably with the majority of people, it doesn't make them paranoid. It makes them hungry and more relaxed. And she's saying there's an increase in violent behavior. Wow. Wow. Yeah, Snoop Dogg strikes me as very fucking violent. When you think of a stoner, yeah, you just think of somebody crusading in the streets with a machete, don't you? No, I think of somebody like, you know, cracked out on their couch eating cookie dough ice cream and Cheetos and watching reruns of The Brady Bunch or some shit. Oh my God. These people are unbelievable.
But these issues, they're not of concern to those looking to cash in on this burgeoning business. Documents obtained by the LA Times show that cannabis companies and investors provided some of the early financial support for UCLA's cannabis research initiative. They funded it, writing checks for tens of thousands of dollars in donations and assisting with fundraising events. And they aren't alone. Harvard, MIT, UC San Diego are among the schools that have accepted multi-million-dollar gifts in recent years. Joining me now is Luke Niforatos, Executive Vice President of Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Luke, so the research for how safe and great weed is, some of the dollars are coming from the weed lobby. Are we getting that right?
Yeah, Laura.
Yeah, so in other words, it's all corrupt, bro. This is all so corrupt. You got like the weed companies paying the people doing the research, so the research says, hey, weed is great, bro. And Laura Ingraham is super concerned about this corruption. All right, Laura, now do the entire U.S. government. Do all of the Republican politicians who you like, you know, like cuddling up to, do where they're getting their money from. They're getting it from the military-industrial complex and Wall Street and big pharma and big health insurance companies. Do that. Do that kind of corruption, because that kind of corruption actually has negative ramifications. That kind of corruption actually leads to a government that doesn't represent the people. It represents powerful interests and billionaires and corporations. But that you will not see that segment on Laura Ingraham's show ever, because she supports the Republican Party, and the Republican Party is probably the worst in terms of its corruption. The Democratic Party is bad, but the Republican Party is worse. She supports them. So you're not going to see that segment, but you're going to see, oh my God, this whole weed thing is corrupt, bro. The only reason we would legalize it is because of corruption and stuff. Okay, even if I grant you everything she's saying here, at the end of the day, it's still a moot point. Why? Because alcohol is legal, and alcohol, by any objective measure, is worse than marijuana. So if we're going to allow alcohol, and by the way, I think we should, then why wouldn't we allow marijuana? Oh, there's some studies that are funded by the weed industry, so maybe they're a little biased to be a little too pro-weed? Ooh. Who cares? I don't care even in the slightest. Even if what they said about weed was true. It makes you violent and it makes you like paranoid and stuff. Okay. People still have a right, if they want to put it in their body, put it in their body. That doesn't strike me as particularly convincing. And also, by the way, like I said, it's not true. The paranoia part is definitely true with some percentage of the population, but the violent part is nowhere near true. Alcohol makes you way more violent, and that's legal, and nobody's trying to ban that today.
Thanks for having me on. I got to tell you, big marijuana is terrified right now because there are now volumes of research telling us that this new supercharged marijuana that the industry is pumping out is causing psychosis, schizophrenia. We're seeing addiction rates go up. They're targeting our kids.
Addiction rates? Oh, this is glorious.
All kinds of car crashes on the roads. So all this is coming out in the research.
This is also all kind of car crashes on the roads. You can legalize marijuana without legalizing driving while high. That's like going after alcohol and saying there's a lot of drunk driving deaths every year. Yeah, but the solution is don't let people drunk drive, not ban alcohol. These people want to ban weed. No, you could just say no more high driving, right? God, it's also Weasley. This is exactly what a guy would look like who is going on a crusade against weed, isn't he? Look at him.
So what do? They go to their big brother tobacco, who, by the way, is their biggest investor, and they start pumping out fake, bogus research. I'm telling you right now, one of the people that funded the millions of dollars for UCLA's research on marijuana, that company was called Nugs, okay? It's not run by Sir Isaac Newton, all right? These are the cannabros running these companies, and they're not trying to advance scientific research. They are paying for publicity and misinformation, which is exactly what big tobacco did. They killed millions of Americans to make a buck, and that's exactly what marijuana wants to do along with their big tobacco investors.
But wait, the right generally loves tobacco companies. Sort of like, hey, it's freedom, live and let live. These are American companies. They can do what they want. Like, it was the right who fought any sort of even regulation of tobacco. Never mind, think about it. They have been in the pocket of big tobacco. They even denied that it caused cancer for a hot minute. That's what the right did. But now all of a sudden you're saying big tobacco is the enemy? No, just so you could take a shot at the weed industry, you're doing that. There's no consistency.
I mean, this is corrupt to the core. And when you chat with folks who maybe don't read up on this or haven't really followed what it does, especially to the young brain with frequent use.
Yeah, nobody's talking about legalizing it for kids. Nobody is talking about legalizing it for kids. Literally nobody has the position that a 10-year-old should be able to smoke weed legally. I hate the... What about the children? Oh. Okay, tell your shitty kid not to smoke weed. Stop them from smoking weed. Punish them if they smoke weed. It's illegal. They're not allowed to do that. So don't blame legalizing it for adults for any problems with kids.
Better for you than alcohol. And it relaxes.
Oh, it is definitely better for most people compared to alcohol. For me, I like alcohol better than weed, even though I really don't like either one, right? But for most people, weed is definitely not as bad as alcohol.
Relaxes you, all the medicinal benefits. And to that, you say?
Well, when I hear about the alcohol thing, I say, well, if you have a car and you just broke your headlight, do you say, okay, well, to be consistent, let me smash in my taillight too? I mean, we have...
Okay, so you're saying ban alcohol and weed. That's what you're saying. Nobody agrees with you, bro. This is like flat out authoritarianism. So these people believe in freedom, but only for like capitalists. Like, let them exploit workers, let them do child labor, let them skirt regulations. That's the freedom they believe in. When it comes to freedom, even just to drink a beer at the end of the day, they're like, no, I want to ban that too. Oh my God, they're so fucking authoritarian.
Have issues with alcohol. More than 100,000 Americans die every year related to alcohol right now. So
yeah, and you want to ban alcohol, and I don't. And if we polled that, it'd be like, what, 90% say leave us the fuck alone? Let it be legal?
It's not like that's going great. And you look at marijuana, you have the industry out there peddling these lies. Marijuana helps with anxiety. Well, we have 10 research studies that just came out in the last 5 years that tell you marijuana actually makes anxiety worse.
For some people. For some people, it definitely is an anti-anxiety medication. Why are you not acknowledging the obvious? Look, I'm willing to admit there may be a grain of truth in what they're saying that, like, hey, weed companies funding any sort of research is going to be more biased in a pro-weed direction. That's probably true. But the answer is somewhere in the middle. The answer is like, with some people, it has negative effects, paranoia, anxiety, whatever. And with some people, it relaxes them and makes them want to eat. Like, the answer is obviously in the middle. And it's a nuanced answer. But the policy solution is not at all nuanced. The policy solution is legalize it so adults can have it. Because, what's the counter to that? It would be continuing the war on drugs ad infinitum. And that would be locking people up for smoking weed, for selling weed, ruining lives, making it so people can't get jobs. I mean, we already lock up more people than any other country on earth. They want to continue with this mass incarceration. The war on drugs is deeply authoritarian. Richard Nixon, his administration admitted later on, yeah, the reason why we did the war on drugs and we cracked down is because white hippies and minority communities were our political enemies. They weren't going to support us, and so we tried to criminalize their lifestyle. That's why they went after drugs. It had nothing to do with safety and public health, and, we're just trying to do the right thing for the people. No, it was a naked political ploy.
You hear these claims that, marijuana is not addictive, yet now the data are telling us from our nation's highest and most revered researchers that 1 in 3 people who use marijuana in the last year now will develop a cannabis use disorder. That's the medical diagnosis for addiction. So there's all these myths out there, Laura, that the industry's trying to undermine. We got to get real science out there, not bogus science that's funded by industry.
This reminds me a lot of the COVID, funding of research studies with COVID. It reminds me a lot of that. Luke, thank you for the work that Smart Approaches to Marijuana does on this issue day in and day out. We really appreciate it.
Can't help but be wrong on COVID, too, in the segment. She's, of course, like a COVID denialist or downplayer or whatever the fuck. Probably vaccine skeptical and all that bullshit. Garbage. Bro, it's 2022. Your war on weed needs to go away. They're overreaching, man. The right is overreaching. They overreached with this anti-gay crusade that they went on recently. The majority of Republican politicians not voting for even a compromise gay marriage bill. They're overreaching on weed. Give it a fucking rest, man. People don't agree with you. They don't like your position. You're deeply anti-freedom, and it's embarrassing. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.